After losing his job, my spouse attempted to take over my successful company. He took a job 500 miles away in secret and used our house as collateral without my knowledge when I refused. Although Victor, 38M, and I, 32F Karen, have been married for 7 years, our history goes far deeper. We first crossed paths when I was 24 years old and a junior marketing executive for a San Francisco-based digital startup. After earning a marketing degree from college, I was excited to establish myself in the fast-paced tech industry. Was creating a cutting-edge tool for small businesses, and the enthusiasm was palpable in spite of the grueling hours and constrained resources. Victor became involved when his business, Digital Force, purchased Invento. Victor was a charismatic and self-assured CFO at Digital Force. I recall the day he arrived at our office, towering above us, immaculately groomed, and beaming with joy. My colleagues were apprehensive about the acquisition, but Victor's personality drew me in right away. As our companies amalgamated over the next 6 months, Victor and I found ourselves collaborating a lot. I was impressed by his financial expertise, and he appreciated my advice on app marketing tactics. Our business partnership gradually developed into a friendship and ultimately into something deeper. We went on our first date to a little, hidden Italian restaurant in North Beach. I was a nervous wreck, concerned about the possible problems of dating someone in higher management and the age difference. But Victor's kindness and sincere interest in my life and goals made me feel comfortable. Victor grew to be my greatest supporter as our bond grew. He gave me advice on how to handle business finances and pushed me to take on greater responsibility at work. I advanced fast in the marketing department with his help. Victor proposed to me during a weekend getaway to Napa Valley, 2 years into our relationship. With rolling vineyards all around and the sun setting in a brilliant display of pink and orange, it was the ideal moment. I felt like I was living in a fantasy tale, so I said yes without thinking twice. 6 months later, in a stunning ceremony in Sausalito, we were married. With a view of the bay. Joining us in celebrating were our colleagues from Digital Force, and I felt like I had it all: a thriving profession, a successful spouse, and a promising future. Victor began discussing starting a family after the wedding. He proposed that I become a stay-at-home wife, saying that we could afford for me to stop working with his salary. I hesitated a bit at first. I cherished my work and the sense of fulfillment it provided. But Victor depicted a picture-perfect family life, complete with leisurely Sunday mornings spent with our future offspring, the flexibility to engage in activities and the delight of witnessing every achievement. I consented after months of deliberation, but I assumed it would only last. After I quit from my job at Digital Force, we began our family planning journey. Our son Leo was born 9 months later. When I first held him in my arms, I felt a love I had never known before. Leo's first year of life was filled with many firsts, sleepless nights, and baby giggles. I plunged myself into parenthood with the same fervor I had formerly only sometimes given to work. But as Leo got older and more self-sufficient, I discovered that I was craving something more. I missed the mental challenge of work, the accomplishment of tasks, and the companionship of coworkers. Leo turned 3 in preschool, so I made the decision to re-enter the workforce. I began by creating my own jewelry and selling it on Etsy. Initially, it was just a pastime that kept my hands and mind busy while Leo was in school. Surprisingly, though, my design began to become more and more popular. I could hardly keep up with the orders within 6 months. Thrilled by the reply, I chose to elaborate. To assist with manufacturing and create a professional website for the company, I employed 2 part-time artists. At first, Victor was encouraging and pleased with my initiative. In our spare room, he even assisted me in setting up a home office. My confidence rose along with the business. I started going to small business owner networking meetings and local artisan fairs. I first got to know Sarah, 34F, a graphic designer who would go on to become a close friend and important business associate, during one of these events. Sarah assisted me with improving my website and brand identification, which helped me grow my little jewelry business. Sarah's assistance and my developing business acumen allowed the company to grow quickly. In less than 2 years, I had a booming online business, a growing list of boutiques carrying my designs, and a team of 10 artisans working for me. We were earning a respectable living. Not nearly as much as Victor's CFO pay, but still a sizable portion that goes toward our family budget. I was happy with what I had created, and things appeared to be going well for the time. Leo was excelling academically. Victor was still doing well at Digital Force, and I had managed to strike a balance between being a mother and pursuing my newfound passion for entrepreneurship. But everything changed 8 months ago. One day, Victor came home with a pale face and informed me that he had been let go. Victor had been with Digital Force for years, but his position had been lost due to downsizing. I was taken aback because Victor had always come across as so assured of his skills and safe in his position. Initially, we both made an effort to remain upbeat. Victor poured himself into finding a job, contacting people in his large network and revising his resume. I concentrated on expanding my company in the hopes of raising our revenue to lessen the impact of Victor losing his job. Victor appeared content with the circumstances for the first few months. He was with Leo more of the time, taking him to soccer practice and assisting with his homework. In addition, he assumed greater responsibility for the home, making supper most nights and maintaining a clean home. I tried to be encouraging and acknowledged his efforts, understanding how challenging this change must be for him. However, as the weeks stretched into months with little chance of employment, I saw a shift in Victor. He became more reserved and quiet. He began spending more time in his home office, purportedly looking for work. But most of the time I would find him just lost in contemplation as he stared at the computer screen. Victor began to make remarks about my company at this point. They were first quite subdued, raising an eyebrow when I mentioned placing a new order, or scowling slightly when I mentioned employing a different craftsperson. But over time, the remarks got more direct and unpleasant. It's only jewelry. How challenging could it be? He mentioned an occasion when I was bursting to inform him about a sizable order from a brand new shop. You were fortunate. Another time, when I showed him our monthly sales data, he said, it won't last. These remarks hurt. I attempted to dismiss them, though, by supposing that Victor was just frustrated with his own circumstances. I told him to keep searching and that the appropriate chance would present itself eventually. But things reached a breaking point last week. Victor proposed that he assume responsibility for my company's finances. I could really make it expand with my background in finance, he added, insinuating that I wasn't capable of handling this part on my own. It surprised me. Although Victor had initially assisted me in setting up my bookkeeping system, I had since completed financial management courses and was capable of managing every facet of the company. I graciously rejected, stating that I enjoyed overseeing every facet of my business and felt confident in my ability to manage things. This sparked a heated dispute. Victor said that, because I was the primary provider, I was emasculating him and not trusting him. He left abruptly and spent 2 days at his brother's house. He apologized when he returned, and for a few days, everything looked to be all right. However, I heard him talking to someone on the phone yesterday, talking about potential investments in my company. He was discussing the possibility of growing my business without my knowledge or approval by using our combined savings. When I challenged him, he became combative. He asserted that he had a right to participate in my business decisions as my spouse. I informed him that I am the only owner of the company and that I have the last say in all matters. Then Victor gave the big hint. He requests that I include his name on the company registration and enlist him as a co-owner. He says it's to safeguard the interests of our family. But I can't help but feel like he's attempting to seize command of something I created from the ground up. I'm conflicted. I want our marriage to succeed because I adore Victor. From the early moments of our brief romance to the difficulties of being new parents, we have experienced a great deal together. He has been my best friend, partner, and pillar of support. It breaks my heart to think of our relationship failing because of this. I am, nevertheless, pleased with the company I have created. It's more than simply a way for me to make money, it's a representation of my hard work, creativity, and personal development. It feels wrong to give up power, especially to someone who has disregarded my efforts. I often find myself wondering how we got here, while I lie awake at night. How could the man who once inspired me to aim high turn into someone who appears to be afraid of my accomplishments? Is it possible to keep our marriage intact without giving up my independence and the company I've put so much effort into building? I'm concerned about Leo as well. Despite our best efforts to keep him away from our disputes, he is old enough to perceive the tension between Victor and myself. What impact will this have on him? Is it self-serving of me to refuse Victor's requests in order to maintain peace in the family? I've thought about recommending couples counseling, but I'm not sure Victor would accept. He's always kept our troubles to himself, keeping family matters under wraps. I think I'm at a fork in the road, and I'm not sure which way to go. Am I being self-centered here? Is it better for our marriage if I allow Victor to have a bigger role? Or are I correct in keeping my business distinct? I would be very grateful for any guidance. Update 1. 3 weeks have passed since my last post, and I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone for their suggestions and encouragement. I found a lot to ponder in your remarks, and they provided me with much-needed perspective on my predicament. I felt it was time for a serious, no-holds-barred conversation with Victor regarding our relationship and my business following my last post. To make sure I didn't get distracted by feelings during our talk, I took a few days to collect my thoughts. I even wrote down some of the most important things I wanted to cover. One night, I sat Victor down in our living room after Leo had gone to bed. I began by telling him how much I appreciated our family and marriage, but I also talked about how his recent actions were hurting me. I told him how much his disparaging remarks about my company had upset me, and how his attempt to assert dominance had made me feel devalued and disrespected. I also mentioned the notion of consulting with a marriage counselor. I clarified that I thought we needed an impartial third party to assist us in resolving our differences and re-establishing the mutual respect and trust that had seemed to be eroding over the previous few months. Victor's response was not what I had wanted or anticipated. Rather than paying attention or demonstrating a desire to address our issues, he grew combative and ultimately irate. He said that I had prioritized my hobby over our marriage. He made some really harsh remarks, including saying he was sorry he had encouraged me to be a stay-at-home mother, since it had made me entitled and lazy. The bitterness in his comments stunned me. This was not my beloved and familiar Victor. He went on his rant as I sat there, trying to take in what he was saying. He mentioned what he had given up for our family, how I was being unappreciative of everything he had done, and how he had always been the main provider until recently. We both said things in the heat of the moment that we could later regret as the fight got more heated. Victor stormed out of the house, claiming he needed time to collect himself. It was 2 weeks prior to that. Since then, Victor has resided with his parents. I was too hurt and upset to talk to him at first, but as the days went by, I became concerned. We had never been silent for as long as we were together since we were married. I've had some time to think back on our relationship and discuss the circumstances with a few close friends. Sarah, a friend of mine, has been really helpful. She visited multiple times, bringing food and lending a listening ear. During one of these chats with Sarah, some warning signs in Victor's behavior that I had previously missed became apparent. Sarah brought to mind instances in which Victor had shown dominance over other facets of our relationship. Similar to how, when I first started my business, he had discouraged me from getting in touch with former coworkers. Leo would need some time to get used to it. Or how, without actually consulting me, he had made decisions about Leo's education, including what preschool he should attend. I began to wonder about other parts of our relationship after these reminders. Had I missed these problems because I was so preoccupied with the idea of our ideal life? My worries grew as I came across something unsettling. I was running my business, so I was going through our financial records to make sure everything was in order. Victor had been taking sizable withdrawals from our joint savings account for the previous 3 months, according to information I discovered. These withdrawals matched the duration of his unemployment, but the sums were significantly higher than what our normal spending would cover. I tried to call him to ask him about this, but he was evasive, telling me it was for investments and not to worry about it. I now really doubt if I can trust Victor with the funds of our family or my business in light of this finding. His desire to be involved in my business seems to be motivated more by control than by a sincere interest in or concern for our family. I made the decision to speak with the lawyer to learn more about my options and safeguard my company since I was feeling overpowered and unclear of what to do. Next, the attorney suggested that I immediately separate our funds and keep a record of every conversation I have with Victor about money or the business. She also advised me to think about getting a post-nuptial agreement in case Victor and I decide to get back together. Victor has been messaging and calling in the meanwhile, switching back and forth between excuses and charges. He claims he wants to return home and misses us 1 minute, then accuses me of pushing him away. According to his most recent communication, he'll consent to marriage counseling, but only if I back off from involving him in my business. It feels exploitative to make this conditional offer, and I'm not sure how to reply. I'm doing everything I can to keep Leo feeling normal in the midst of all of this. He's beginning to inquire as to why his father isn't home. I can't stand to watch him look so bewildered and angry. It's difficult, but I'm trying my best to keep things as regular and preserve his schedule. He will be spending more time with my parents, who have been my biggest supporters during this whole journey, as I have arranged. Regarding my business, I'm devoting all of my energy to it in an effort to manage the strain of the circumstances. While designing our fall collection, the creative process has provided a much-needed diversion. My colleagues have been accommodating and sympathetic, taking up the slack when I have personal obligations. I'm anxious about my marriage's future and feel overburdened. I still have feelings for Victor and want to pull through, especially for Leo's benefit. I recall the wonderful times, our passionate dates, Victor's excitement upon Leo's birth, and his early support of my business. However, I'm also beginning to feel as though this relationship might not be as healthy as I had previously believed. I'm concentrating on my son and my business, one day at a time. In an effort to make sense of everything that's going on, I've also started going to therapy on my own. It's assisting me in gaining perspective and processing my emotions around the circumstance, though I have no idea what the future holds. I know that I must continue to be strong for both Leo and myself. When the circumstances become clearer to me, I'll provide another update. Again, I want to thank you all for your help and guidance. You don't realize how much it matters. Update 2. After an additional month, events have taken an unforeseen turn. I'm sorry for the wait for the update. A lot has happened, and I needed time to take it all in. First, the good news: in spite of my personal anguish, my business has prospered. We've added a variety of ethically sourced gemstone jewelry to our product line, and it's been a huge hit. We've expanded beyond just our internet presence to include a tiny physical store. Though it's a little area in a busy retail center, it's all mine, and it feels like a dream come true to see my designs on display in an actual storefront. This achievement has been a consolation prize in an otherwise trying period. Here comes the difficult part. Victor eventually consented to attend marriage counseling without any conditions after weeks of back and forth. After locating a therapist with expertise in couples counseling, we set up a first appointment. I was nervous and hopeful at the same time when I walked into my first visit. Dr. Anderson, the therapist, was kind and competent. She began by asking us to share the circumstances that led to our seeking counseling. I gave an explanation of the conflicts that resulted from Victor losing his job and his attempts to become engaged in my company. Victor talked about his dissatisfaction with his continuous unemployment and how he felt neglected in our marriage. We probed deeper into our concerns throughout the course of the next 3 sessions. Dr. Anderson assisted us in determining the communication patterns that were producing issues. She brought up how painful Victor's remarks about my company were, and how he felt left out since I was reluctant to include him. We worked on expressing our emotions without placing blame and engaged in active listening exercises. At first I had hope. It appeared as though Victor was paying attention and accepting part of his actions. He expressed regret for his insensitive remarks and pledged to help my business more going forward. I also promised to be more sympathetic to the psychological toll that his unemployment was having on him. But something occurred in our 4th meeting that completely altered the course of events. Dr. Anderson invited us to talk about our aspirations for the future, as a couple and as individuals. I mentioned that one day I wanted to take my business nationwide and perhaps even worldwide. I also said that I hoped Victor would find happy, meaningful job and that our family would mend. Victor paused before unleashing a bombshell when it was his turn. He acknowledged being more than 500 kilometers away. The startling aspect? He had accepted the job without consulting me beforehand. I was taken by surprise. Victor justified his choice by claiming that he made it for our family and that he thought I would be open to moving. He contended that I could move my company with ease and that this was his opportunity to take the lead once more. I was enraged and hurt. Victor not only made a significant decision without consulting me, but he also gave the impression that Leo's stability and the company I had built were unimportant. Our advisor made an effort to mediate. However, the session finished with us both feeling agitated and with no clear way forward. Victor and I had a few tense conversations over the course of the next several days. He was adamant that relocation was the greatest choice for our family and that my delay in accepting was selfish. I refused to back down, saying that it was not a decision to be taken lightly or hastily, and that uprooting our lives, especially Leo's, and maybe hurting my business was not something I did. Victor revealed something to me during one of these discussions that instantly chilled me to the bone. He said he had already begun looking at homes in the new location and had made a down payment to guarantee Leo a decent school. He got evasive when I questioned him for the source of this money. I made the gut-wrenching decision to further investigate our financial situation. I was dumbfounded by what I discovered. Without my knowledge or approval, Victor had not only taken out sizable withdrawals from our joint account, but had also taken out a loan on our house. When I told Victor this information, he responded in a way that was both defiant and desperate. He declared that he had done all to ensure a better future for us. However, I couldn't get rid of the impression that the tale had more layers. I have to make some tough choices now. Saying this is our final chance to repair our marriage, Victor is putting pressure on me to accept the relocation. But I can't help but feel that there has been too much betrayal of trust. My lawyer and I are investigating the legality of Victor's financial actions after our latest conversation. I'm also thinking about what it would mean for Leo and me to be apart. I've learned how crucial it is to preserve my financial and emotional independence as a result of the entire circumstance. My business has given me opportunities that I might not have otherwise had, so I'm glad for that. Once I've made up my mind about what to do next, I'll post another update. For now, I'm attempting to work my way through this difficult circumstance while safeguarding my son, myself, and my business. Update 3: in the 2 months since my last post, I've made a few significant choices. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who helped and counseled me throughout this trying time. Upon thorough introspection and multiple legal advice, I have made the decision to initiate the divorce process. Though it wasn't an easy decision, I think this is the best course of action for Leo and myself. When I learned the true reason for Victor's insistence on moving, it was the last straw. As it happens, the employment offer was really a business opportunity with Mark, an old college buddy of his. Together, they intended to launch a tech consulting business. Victor had used the loans he had taken out to put a sizable portion of our funds into this firm without my knowing. Victor eventually broke down and told the truth when I confronted him with this information. Seeing my accomplishment as a source of insecurity, he saw this as an opportunity to reaffirm his own abilities. Even after expressing regret for what he had done, he persisted in trying to persuade me that moving and helping him with his new endeavor would be beneficial for our family. That's when I knew our relationship had irreversibly broken down. Victor's behavior betrayed a basic lack of regard for me, my company, and our married partnership. Divorce filing has been an extremely taxing procedure. There are times when I think back on the happy days, our first date, our wedding, Leo's birth, and I'm overcome with grief at what we've lost. However, when I consider Victor's most recent deeds, I realize that I'm on the right track. We are currently dividing our lives apart. It's been difficult, particularly in trying to explain the situation to Leo. He's been inquiring a lot about why his father isn't living with us anymore, and whether or not it was his fault. Can't stand to watch him struggle with this. To assist him cope with these changes, we have made arrangements for him to see a child psychologist. Positively, my company is still doing nicely. Due to the new gemstone line's great success, we want to create a second physical location in a nearby city. To assist me in navigating this new chapter and ensuring Leo and I have long-term stability, I've hired a financial advisor. Additionally, I'm in the process of purchasing Victor's portion of our home so that Leo and I may continue to live in a familiar environment. Surprisingly, my in-laws had offered assistance. They conveyed their dissatisfaction with Victor's behavior and stated that they wished to keep us in contact. They've been spending time with Leo on a regular basis, which has been really beneficial during this change. Victor has moved out and is now staying with Mark as they work to launch their firm. He's begged for another opportunity and said he would do better, but I'm not backing down from my choice. I've come to the conclusion that rather than feeling intimidated by my achievement, my partner should respect me and encourage it. I've learned a lot from this experience about independence, self-worth, and the value of honest communication in a partnership. Even while I'm sorry my marriage is over, I'm still looking forward to what Leo and I have ahead of us. My priorities right now are getting better, being the best mother I can be, and expanding my business. Throughout it all, my friend Sarah has been an amazing support, frequently stopping over with a bottle of wine after Leo goes to bed to chat or occasionally just to sit in friendly silence. There are still difficult days to come. The divorce process will not happen quickly. Furthermore, I'm aware that Leo will face difficulties adjusting to our new family dynamic. However, I'm determined to go forward with courage and optimism.